All right, so the job I was assigned is venue or facility operations manager. Someone with this job plays a key role in every event that happens at a venue, especially big sporting events. They must know exactly what's going on with the event and with their staff at all times. They have many short-term and long-term responsibilities that they must ensure they take care of. Some examples of these are operations, and this is the primary duty of a venue manager. And it means to oversee all operations of the venue. And this includes the management of all staff, the oversight of all procedures, and the troubleshooting of any problems. A venue must operate year-round, so the venue manager must keep the space in good working condition, not only during a performance but on off nights as well. So they must also market the venue. So they have to market it to their community so that they get people to keep coming back to the venue even during off season of the sport that they're in charge of. So their job is to make sure that the populace is aware of the venue and knows what events are coming up. So while getting talent in to perform opens the door to profit, the venue needs paying patrons to come to the shows. The venue manager must get the venue into the consciousness of the public. So another responsibility is booking. So some venues have events booked by promoters. The venue manager must ensure that those promoters are aware of the venue and will use it for their events. A venue makes money when there is an event on its stage, and the manager is responsible for keeping the venue booked on as many nights as possible. In some cases, he interacts with talent agents directly to bring events into the space. So just going back to, they need to have something constantly going on, even during the off season. They need to have like concerts or events like Nitro Circus or something going on. So another responsibility is financial responsibilities, and the venue manager is responsible for setting a yearly financial budget and then sticking to it. So they must be aware of all costs and revenues that affect the way that this space does business. So they must also use periodic financial updates to readjust the operations of the venue to maximize the profit by the end of the year. So another thing that's key to being a venue operations manager is having a good education. For them to be successful, they generally need some sort of degree in business and experience working in a similar capacity somewhere else. So usually a venue manager starts at a small space and moves to larger ones with bigger events. So according to Entertainment Management Online at MSU, the venue manager can expect to make anywhere from $20,000 to $90,000 per year. So I was able to contact a few operations managers and ask them a list of questions. And so here are some of their responses. So Aaron Rush is the first, and he's the venue manager for the Sacramento Kings. So number one, I asked, could you describe one of their typical work days? And he said there's no typical day. Every day is different. It's depending on the event we're hosting or the event we are preparing for. So number two, what skills are required in your position on a day-to-day basis? The ability to work long hours, think on your feet, be extremely well organized, and communicate well. One second. So number three, what parts of your job do you find most challenging? Selling more tickets than we're supposed to. Alright, so number four, what do you find most enjoyable? The look on people's faces moments before tip-off or when an artist takes the stage. Are there any negatives to your job? Many of your decisions and actions are up for public discussion and comments. So number six, how many hours do you work in a typical week? He said 50 to 60 hours. So which seasons of the year are toughest in your job? October through May. How would you describe the corporate culture? It is team-focused with core values focused on excellence, integrity, openness, hard work, and having fun. What educational preparation would you recommend for someone who wants to advance in this field? So he said this field is highly competitive. So a postgraduate degree is one way to separate yourself from the competition. And are too many or too few people entering this profession? He said there's a large demand for people who want to enter this profession, and there's a large demand than people who are qualified. So what developments on the horizon could affect future opportunities? He said augmented reality and what and how that will impact live events and the jobs it will create in the future. What would be a reasonable salary range to expect if I enter this field? What is the long-term potential? Said most people need to prove themselves in this field with a low paid or unpaid internship. Entry level can range from $30,000 to $45,000 a year, management up to $75,000 a year, and senior leadership over $100,000 to unique compensation packages depending on the situation. So what is the advancement potential in the field, and what is a typical path? People usually find a geographic location that they love, and then they wait for an opportunity within the local field, and this can take a long time. So those who are willing to move around can find themselves advancing at a faster pace to other locations who do not have quality people waiting for the opportunities. So the more you can prepare and volunteer and do now, the more marketing you'll be in the future. And how do most people enter this profession? Most enter through entry-level positions and work their way up. Very few are lucky enough to enter at a higher level and be successful. So the next guy is Craig Martin, and he's the VP of Stadium Operations for Real Salt Lake. So number one, could you describe one of your typical work days? So every day is busy. We have to plan differently for every event, especially for big rivalry games or playoff games. What skills are required in your position on a day-to-day basis? You must be able to adjust to every event. You need to be good at multitasking, organized, and good with people. Number three, what parts of your job do you find most challenging? This job can be challenging when things get really busy and stress tends to take over. What do you find most enjoyable? I love the actual game. Watching all the things you and your team prepared for come to life during the game is a great feeling. Number five, are there any negatives of your job? He said, I love almost every aspect of my job, but again, the stress can sometimes creep in and be negative. How many hours do you work in a typical week? And he said around 50 hours. What seasons in the year are toughest for your job? And his was March through October, because that's during the soccer season. What educational preparation would you recommend for someone looking to go into this field? And he said at least a bachelor's degree, but he would recommend getting something beyond that if you want to be really successful. Are too many or too few people entering this profession? He says there's too many people entering this profession at the moment. Number 10, what developments on the horizon could affect future opportunities? In the future, this occupation will be highly competitive. Future opportunities in this profession might be scarce because of it. What would be a reasonable salary range to expect if I entered this field? What is the long-term potential? Entry level for this job can be as low as $20,000 per year, but there are advancement opportunities once you have proven yourself. You can work your way up to making $90,000 to $100,000 a year. What is the advancement potential in the field? What is a typical path? There is good advancement potential in the field if you are good at your job and willing to move to different teams. A typical path for someone is starting in an entry-level job and proving themselves to become a venue manager. It can take a while to prove yourself. Then how do most people enter this profession? Again, most must start at the bottom of the food chain. You must work hard and be determined if you wish to have a higher-level job in this profession. So then the last guy that I asked was Raul Bueno. He's the facilities manager of operations for the San Jose Earthquakes. So number one, could you describe one of your typical work days for me? A typical work day for me is planning for the next event that we will be hosting and any larger events in the future. What skills are required in your position on a day-to-day basis? You must be good at managing tasks and time. You must be able to lead and manage others so that they know what their responsibilities are. Number three, what parts of your job do you find most challenging? It can be a challenge to get everything prepared and ready to go for the events. Number four, what do you find most enjoyable? I find it enjoyable to complete all of my goals and responsibilities for an event, but there's always the next one that you have to be thinking and preparing for. Number five, are there any negatives of your job? I can't think of many negatives of my job. There's a lot of work to be done that can sometimes take away from your life outside of work. Number six, how many hours do you work in a typical week? His was pretty similar to the others. He said it really depends, but in a typical week, it's around 55 to 60 hours. Number 7, what seasons in the year are the toughest for your job? And he said beginning of spring until the beginning of fall, like Craig Martin, because he's also with MLS. What educational preparation would you recommend for someone looking to go into this field? He says educational preparation is essential to this field. Having a higher level education can set you apart from others and give you opportunities in the future. Are too many or too few people entering this profession? There are many people looking to enter this profession at the moment. Alright, so what developments on the horizon could affect future opportunities? For the future, technological advancements may affect opportunities. You'll need a whole new branch of skill sets to be able to work well with the new technologies that might come. Alright, so what would be a reasonable salary range to expect if I enter this field? And what is the long-term potential? It says a reasonable salary range would be $30,000 to $70,000 per year. This number can change quite dramatically with your position in the venue that you manage. So what is the advancement potential in this field? If you can beat out the competition, there are many advancement opportunities in the field, but it just really depends on if you are good enough to get yourself known or not. And then the last one, how do most people enter this profession? Most people enter this profession at small venues or lower level jobs in the venue. Alright, so just concluding, wrapping it up. There are many aspects to being a venue manager, especially when your venue hosts larger sporting events. You have to plan differently for each event and just know your market and know who you're trying to get to the game, and you have a wide variety of responsibilities, so you must have a wide variety of skills as well. You must be well educated if you expect to be successful. There are great opportunities and high salaries if you are able to advance and progress in the field. It is highly competitive at the moment, so you must make sure you have the skill set and education required to be great at what you do. It is great to learn what a venue operations manager is and does, and I feel like I got great insight into what they do and how things work as a venue operations manager.